Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Board of County Commissioners Comprehensive Plan Amendment Public Hearing. Will the clerk please call the roll for sake of a quorum?
Miller,
Here.
Hagan,
Here.
Kemp, Merman,
Here.
Overman,
It wasn't me.
Smith,
Here.
White,
Here.
and that was Overman for here as well?
Yeah, she's here.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I'm
You
here.
have a quorum.
Okay. Commissioner Hagan, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Board members, I'm going to have to leave the meeting early this evening to attend my son's graduation. So I'll be ducking out as probably in about 30, 40 minutes. I just wanted to put that on the record. Thank you.
Okay. All right, sir. Thank you. I want to welcome everyone to the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners Comprehensive Plan Public Hearing. The Board of County Commissioners will consider the transmittal of 2 future land use map amendments to the State Land Use Planning Agency and other agencies for review. If these 2 amendments are approved for transmittal, a second public hearing and final vote will be held before the amendments are adopted. The board will then consider the adoption of 3 small-scale amendments to the future land use map. Before we get started, I call on someone to the Planning Commission staff. We were not able to identify those people that are called in to which item they would like to speak to. And we didn't get that, and it's kind of hard for me to determine. So what we're going to do is, for instance, when we get to CPA 20-05, and after staff goes into the explanation, the applicant talks about it, when I open up a public hearing, I will say anyone want to speak on CPA 2025. If you're on the phone, please let staff know so they can let me know that I can call on you. Okay, hope that works out. That's the best way we can do it right now. I'll now request that the Planning Commission staff introduce the first item on this evening's agenda. Mr. Garcia, are you there?
Yes, sir.
I think there was something you wanted to do first.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, commissioners, fellow commissioners. We have 5 items before you this evening, 2 for transmittal and 3 for adoption. We would like to slightly change the order of your B items, moving the last B item, B3, to the beginning of your B items to help facilitate the movement of the items before you this evening. So that is our request before you this evening, is to move item B3 to the beginning of the B items.
I could barely hear you, Mr. Garcia. You want to move B3 before B1? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any objections to that? Any objection? No, we don't need a motion. Any objection? No objection? Okay, we'll move
Mr.
B3.
Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'm on B1. I need 5 votes, and with Mr. Hagan leaving, that makes me nervous. But my issue is very positive, so I'm not sure what you want to do on that.
Mr. Garcia?
It's totally up to Mr. Pressman if he wants to wait. I know that the commissioner said he's leaving in 30 or 40 minutes. We may or may not be done by that time frame with the first 3 amendments before us. I have no way of determining that, sir.
So what he's saying, Mr. Tressman, is that the first A1 and A2 might take up more time than anticipated. Commissioner Hagan might be gone anyway.
He might be. So if we could get that point, see where we're at, but I would have concerns about moving B3 up if we're close to losing if we lose Mr. Hagan.
Well, let's see where we are when we get there, okay?
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Commissioner,
Yes.
this is Commissioner Smith. I think we only need 4 votes for transmittal and for the first 2 and 5 votes for the last 3. Would it make sense to take all the B items first while we are likely to have a full board? Just a thought.
Mr. Garcia?
That's your pleasure as a board.
Okay, let's do this. Out of objection, we're going to take up B items first. Okay, that work, Mr. Garcia?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the first one we're going to bring up is CPA. Let's take up
2003 B1.
Yeah. 2003. let's take up 2003, CPA 20-06.
That's fine. Okay, 20-06. Okay, that would be Ms. Jawan Haley is the presenter on that. Ms. Haley?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Jawan Haley, and I'll be presenting the Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan Amendment 20-06. I'm just waiting for my slides. Oh,
That's the wrong one.
It would,
We're taking 2006.
thank you, James.
There we go.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So again, my name is Jawan Haley, Planning Commission staff. I'll be presenting Comprehensive Plan Amendment 20-06, locating at 5508 Orient Road. This is a privately initiated amendment. The request is to change the land use category from commercial mixed use 12, CMU 12, to office commercial 20 or OC 20. You can move to the next slide. So you see here the star, that's where the amendment's located. It's in East Hillsborough County. You can move on to the next slide. So the subject property is outlined here in pink. The property is located on approximately 1.46 acres. The existing land use is a mobile home park. The parcel is located in the northwestern quadrant of the Orient Road and East Hillsborough Avenue intersection. The major road networks nearby are East Hillsborough Avenue, it's a four-lane arterial. It's located to the south of the subject property. Orient Road is located immediately to the east of the site. It is a two-lane collector. Again, the site is located within the urban service area. It is within the limits of the East Lake Orient Park Community Plan. So there is residential and non-residential development surrounding the property. The majority of the residential parcels are east of Orient Road and south of East Hillsborough Avenue. The majority of the non-residential parcels are on the west side of Orient Road. Light industrial parcels border the subject property to the west. Vacant and light commercial parcels are located south of the property. Light and heavy commercial uses are located in the southwest quadrant of the Orient Road and East Hillsborough Avenue intersection. The Hard Rock Hotel and Casino is located in the southeast quadrant of the East Hillsborough Avenue and Orient Road intersection. Next slide, please. So there are 5 different land use categories within the vicinity of the subject property. Commercial mixed use 12 is the current adopted future land use category. Commercial mixed use 12, CMU 12, is located immediately to the north, to the east, and southeast of the site. Research corporate park and light industrial land use categories are located to the north and northwest. Office commercial 20 is located to the west and south of the property along Hillsborough Avenue, and residential 6 is located further south. Next slide, please. And again, this is just a layout of all the land use categories. And this slide just depicts the subject parcel with the OC20 land use category designation. We can move on to the next slide. So now it's a series of different pictures of the subject site and the surrounding area. So here, this is the front of the subject property. This is west of Orient Road. Move to the next slide. This is Venus Drive. It is immediately north of the subject property. Next slide. This is Orient Road and Comanche Drive intersection. It is on the east side of Orient Road, facing away from the subject site. Next slide. This is the east side of Orient Road, across from the subject property. Next slide. This is front of the subject property facing north, Orient Road. And this is the east, this is looking south away from the property, looking towards the East Hillsborough Avenue and Orient Road intersection. Next slide. So currently, again, the adopted land use category is commercial mixed use 12. It permits up to 12 dwelling units per acre. The maximum floor area ratio is 0.50 FAR. The maximum density, the total maximum amount of units that would be permitted on site currently is 17 dwelling units. The maximum intensity would be 31,798 square feet. For the proposed land use, the office commercial zoning land use designation would permit a density up to 20 dwelling units per acre with a floor area ratio of 0.75. The maximum density will increase to 29 dwelling units. The maximum intensity allowed on site would be 47,698 square feet. Please note that C12 and AC20 are not subject to commercial locational criteria. Next slide. Next slide.
Chair, I hate to interrupt, but Ms. Haley, do you have anything over your microphone? You are so muddled, it is very difficult to understand you.
Oh, no, I do not. Here, I can try to just speak louder. Is that better?
Yes,
That
better.
is much better. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interrupt.
All right, next slide, please. So for findings of consistency, staff found that the proposed amendment is comparable and compatible with the development pattern in the area for policies 1.4 and 16.3 in these elements. It also provides a gradual transition from commercial mixed use 12 to office commercial 20 on the west side of Orient Road for policy 6.2, also found in the future land use element. Staff also found that the proposed amendment facilitates high density and high intensity development and redevelopment within the urban service area along Epaletta Roadway, Orient Road. This is for policy 16.5 and 23.5 in the future land use element. The proposed amendment also furthers the vision and intent of East Lake Orient Road. The East Lake Orient Park strategic plan. The proposed amendment to office commercial planning facilitates potential economic development.
Get closer, get closer, get closer, get closer. We fade out again.
You're muffled again.
Uh-oh. Okay. So this is good here.
Ms. Haley,
That's
Secretary
better.
Michelle Roy, if you're holding papers up in front of your microphone, if you're reading from papers, that may be causing the issue as well.
Okay, so is this better here though? I moved.
Yes.
Yeah.
Better.
Okay, so again, the proposed development does facilitate the vision of the East Lake Orient Park community plan. You can move to the next slide. So there were no objections. The school board didn't have comments. Lake High School does not have the adequate capacity to accommodate the proposed land use change. This issue will be addressed at the time of development review. Also at this time, staff has not received any public comments on this proposed amendment.
Ma'am, let me ask you a question before you move the slide.
Sure.
Blake High School does not have adequate capacity to accommodate the proposed land use change. Blake High School is in West Tampa.
Right.
That's correct. Those were the comments provided to staff.
Oh my gosh, somebody wasn't reading it right.
Yeah, they didn't read that right. Okay, go ahead.
Tampa Bay Tech is right down the street.
It's probably Tampa Bay Tech.
Yeah.
Yeah, even Hillsborough High School is closer than that, so.
Blake High School.
is close to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. I just saw that. I'm like, what are they talking about? But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Right. So we can move on to the next slide. So on June 8th, 2020, the Planning Commission recommended that the Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan Amendment 20-06 be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for Unincorporated Hillsborough County. Next slide. This concludes my presentation, and of course, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant here?
Yes, this is Russell Ottenberg with Planning
Okay.
Incorporated,
All right, sir.
37 Lake Choice Drive.
You have 3 minutes.
Yes, sir, thank you. Representing the applicant, we have reviewed the Planning Commission report and we agree with staff's analysis, findings, and recommendations, and request that the commission find this CPA consistent and compatible and recommend or approve it. And if there are any questions regarding it, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone wanting to speak as a proponent to CPA 20-06? Staff, let me know if there's anyone.
Chairman, I just sent you an email. All of the public comment is for B2 except for one. One other caller is for A1, but there are no citizens that want to provide public comment for B3, sir.
Okay, so then okay, so everyone else is speaking, want to speak toward B2 and one for A1. Okay, gotcha. Okay, this closes the public hearing. Applicant, you waive your rebuttal time?
Yes, I'll waive rebuttal. Thank you.
Okay. Let's get into questions from the commissioners. Commissioner Smith, you recognize. Commissioner Smith?
Sorry, I had my hand up from the earlier comment. Sorry.
Okay, all right. Okay, what's your pleasure?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hagan, second by Commissioner Merman to approve item CPA 20-06. See no further discussion, please call the roll.
Miller,
Yes.
Hagan,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Merman,
Yes.
Overman,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia, let's revert back to B1, CPA 20-03.
Sir, 20-03, your presenter will be Ms.
Mr. Garcia, I cannot hear you on the audio, please.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Very faint.
The presenter will be Ms. Krista Kelly.
Good afternoon, Krista Kelly, Planning Commission staff. I'm presenting Comprehensive Plan Amendment 2003, a future land use map amendment. Next slide, please. This site is located within the urban service area in the northwest portion of the county in the Carrollwood Northdale Community Plan area. The major road networks serving this site are Gun Highway and Dale Mabry Highway. Next slide, please. This is an aerial of the site. As you can see, it's an established residential area. The site's outlined in pink. It's 5 acres in size, consisting of 6 parcels. Again, the surrounding area is predominantly single-family homes on quarter-acre lots and smaller. Next slide. The adopted future land use map shows the site currently residential 4, as is the surrounding area. To the southwest is residential 9, and residential 12 is directly to the west. Next slide. The applicant is requesting residential 9, similar to the site to the northwest. Next slide. Impact of this change would be a change in the number of dwelling units from 21 to 48, The scale of development would increase from a suburban scale to urban scale. And the floor area ratio would increase from 0.25 to 0.50 if the site met locational criteria, which it does not at this point. A waiver would be required. Next slide. This amendment was distributed for agency comments. There were no objections received. The school district did note that Gaither High School doesn't have adequate capacity and that issue would be addressed at the development review stage. Next slide, please. Staff reviewed it for consistency and found it consistent with the growth management strategy for development in the urban service area. The urban service area is intended to optimize investments for services and infrastructure and to protect vulnerable natural environments. The plan calls for compatibility in design and function of new development. Next slide, please. Based on these findings, the Planning Commission recommended that Comprehensive Plan Amendment 2003 be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the future of Hillsborough's comprehensive plan. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. This is a public hearing. If there, I'm sorry, applicant.
Yes, sir.
You have 3 minutes, sir.
I have a PowerPoint. We can pull that up. Can you see that, sir?
No, sir.
Todd, it may just be easier if I share on your behalf. Please stand by.
Sure. Commissioners, Todd Pressman, 200 2nd Avenue South in St. Petersburg, Florida. That's the staff's PowerPoint, of course. Commissioners, appreciate you being here this evening. Pleasure to see you all virtually. This request is supported by the Planning Commission and was supported by the Planning Commission Board in their vote last week. So we are very proud to have all their support. This request is residential to residential. As staff has indicated, there's no one here and objecting to it. Staff listed quite a number of different policies and objectives that we meet, including being within the USA, including it being an infill project, including it providing a different type of housing stock in this particular area. And there's also already, by rezoning, there's a site plan in place which requires substantial buffering and substantial improvements to be done with the project. There's also a 28-foot buffer area on the east, which is a paper roadway separating the other residential area to the east. So the project will have very good buffering, very good improvements of landscaping and naturally built-in buffers. So in regard to all of the staff's indications of consistency, objectives, and policies, we ask for your support, and we will look forward to this being a very straightforward residential project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pressman. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak on item 20, CPA 20-3? I didn't have any names, but did anyone else call in for that at all, staff?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Pressman, you waive your time? Rebuttal time?
Thank you.
Okay. We're now into board discussions. Anyone want to discuss item CPA 20-03?
Commissioner Kemp, I'll move it.
Motion by Commissioner Kemp, second by whom? Who?
Overman.
Second by Commissioner Overman. Seeing no further discussion, please call the roll on CPA 20-3.
Miller,
Yes.
Hagan,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Merman,
Yes.
Overman,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
White. Commissioner White,
Yes.
motion carried 6-0.
Can you hear me?
Commissioners, appreciate it, and thank you for your time.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah, I hear you
Motion
now.
carried
Yeah.
7-0.
Thank you.
Thank
Now
you,
move,
Commissioners.
we'll now move to B2 CPA 20-04.
Mr. Will Augustine is the presenter for this, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Good evening, Commissioners. Do we want 2004 to go last or now?
Now,
Now,
Now. Now it is. Good evening, Commissioners. Will Augustine, Planning Commission staff. The next agenda item before you is Comprehensive Plan Amendment 2004. Next slide, please. Comprehensive Plan Amendment 2004 is located in northwest Hillsborough County, just north of Limeball Avenue and south of Gun Highway. Next slide, please. The subject site is a privately initiated map amendment, approximately 3.42 acres in size. The aerial shows that the surrounding area is predominantly single-family homes. Residential 4 and residential 6 are the predominant land uses in the area. Subject property is north of the Nixon Road, West Limeball Avenue intersection. Anderson Road is to the west, and the Gun Highway Limeball Avenue intersection is to the east. The subject site is in the urban service area. Next slide, please. The subject site has an adopted residential 4 land use classification. The large public, quasi-public parcel immediately to the east is the Xavier F. Canella Elementary School. To the west along Lynn Road is the Indian Cultural Center and the Hindu Temple of Florida. The area to the south along Limeball Avenue is a mixture of office, commercial, manufacturing, and light industrial uses. Residential 4 and residential 6 are the predominant land uses of the surrounding properties. Next slide, please. The applicant is requesting a land use change to residential 9. Next slide, please. The currently adopted land use classification of residential 4 allows a maximum of 13 dwelling units on the 3.42 acre site. Suburban scale neighborhood commercial, office, or multi-purpose projects are limited to 175,000 square feet or a floor area ratio of 0.25. With a land use change to residential 9, the subject site would have a potential build-out of up to 30 dwelling units. Suburban scale neighborhood commercial, office, or multi-purpose projects are limited to 175,000 square feet or floor area ratio of 0.50. Next slide, please. This photograph is a view north showing Nixon Road. To the left is the subject property. Next slide, please. This photograph is a view looking west at the subject property's entrance. Next slide, please. This photograph is a west view of the subject property. Next slide, please. This photograph is a view along Nixon Road to the southwest at the subject property's entrance. Next slide, please. This photograph is a south view along Nixon Road. The subject property is at the right. Next slide, please. This photograph is a view looking southwest, showing the retention pond along Nixon Road. Next slide, please. This photograph is a view looking northeast, showing Canella Elementary along Nixon Road. Next slide, please. This photograph is a view looking north along Nixon Road. Residential subdivision is to the left, and the northern boundary of Canella Elementary is to the right. Next slide, please. After distribution for local agency review, No objections were received. Next slide, please. After distribution to the surrounding property owners for review, the agency received more than 40 objections to the proposed land use change. Next slide, please. Planning Commission staff has determined that the request for a land use change to residential dime is consistent with the following language, policies, and objectives from the county's future land use element. Objective 1 of the future land use element clarifies that the county will proactively promote growth in the urban service area. Policy 1.4 defines compatibility of different uses, allowing them to be near or adjacent to each other. Next slide, please. Goal 12 emphasizes that the design of neighborhoods should relate to the surrounding character. Objective 12-1 directs that new developments recognize the existing community and be designed in a compatible way. Policy 12-1.4 designates that compatibility may be achieved through the utilization of various site design techniques. Next slide, please. Objective 16 designates that all new development conform to the following neighborhood protection policies. Policy 16.2 recognizes that gradual transitions between different land uses shall use professional siting, buffering, and screening techniques. Policy 16.3 clarifies that development is to be integrated with adjacent land uses through the creation of like uses, complementary uses, the mitigation of any adverse impacts, and include transportation and pedestrian connections. Next slide, please. Policy 16.8 designates that the overall density and lot size of new residential projects shall reflect the character of the surrounding area. Policy 16.10 designates that any density increase shall be compatible with existing, proposed, or planned surrounding development. Policy 16.13 clarifies that medium and high-density residential and mixed-use development is encouraged to be located along transit emphasis corridors, potential transit corridors, and arterial roadways. Next slide, please. Goal 1 of the Greater Carrollwood-Northdale Community Plan is established to sustainable community activity centers. Goal 7 of the neighborhood plan is to ensure that any new development is compact, contiguous, and concurrent with available public facilities and services and promotes the integration of uses. Next slide, please. Finally, the Planning Commission found Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan Amendment 20-04 consistent and recommends a finding of consistency with the goals, objectives, and policies of the future Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County. Next slide, please. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you, sir. Is the applicant available?
Yes, Matthew Campo here on behalf of the applicant.
Okay, you have 3 minutes, sir.
Great, I'm gonna go ahead and put my slideshow up. Everybody see that okay?
Not yet.
Not yet? How about now?
Not yet.
I apologize.
Mr. Brewer, there you go.
All right, how about now?
There you go, yes.
Okay, I apologize for that. Too many screens.
Okay. All right, you have 3 minutes from now.
Thank you, sir. Matthew Campo, Campo Engineering, representing the applicant. This particular slide, the yellow box you see there is the parcels in question. It's a 3.42 acre development. This actually has also a companion PD zoning that goes to ZHM on August 3rd. And as was mentioned, it's about a quarter-mile north of Linebaugh. We do have planning commissioners and staff finding consistent at the previous hearing. This I wanted to show is focusing on the infill component. This is Andover Village. This development is actually Andover on the north, the west, and the south. So this property is a remnant that was left over after Andover was developed. This particular side focuses on the other land uses in this area. This is Lynn Road, south of the subject property. There's 4 other land use modifications that were completed and approved with land use from R9 down to up to R12. So the Planning Commission staff, we've reviewed that. We do have no issues with their policies or objectives, and we thought that was actually very well done. We have no objection with the report. So what I want to focus on is what you're going to probably hear from the neighbors. Obviously, you heard the comment about 40 objections. There's a lot of comments that you'll hear that are tied to zoning relating items. And I just want to touch on a few things that came up in the Planning Commission hearing that were, I thought that were not accurately portrayed, which is this project is too large. This is a 30 unit development. Actually, in our application, we're proposing 26. Somebody said they don't want apartments. These are proposed as single family, high quality. It's a residential community. It's not apartments. Nixon Road is a failed road. Nixon Road is actually not a failed road. It's a level of service C. It's at 40% capacity. There was a comment about Canella Elementary School being a, actually my side is not completely correct there, but Canella is at 69% utilization. And also there was some comments about traffic issues at the entrance to the Canella School. Hillsborough County has a new project, the CIP for sidewalk improvements there. And then we're also going to be doing a pedestrian safety analysis and improvements as part of our project. One comment was that it was 3-story building with rooftop decks. That's not the case. It's 2-story units. There's no rooftop decks. Somebody was concerned about large dumpster enclosures. All the units will have trash can service out of the garage, just like any development. The one last slide, I apologize, talks about the distance from buildings to the residential. There's 80 feet to the west and 40 feet to the north. Somebody was concerned about people looking down in their yards. A single family at this location would have 7.5 foot side setbacks and 25 rear. So what we're proposing, I wanted to just paint this picture so when you hear the other folks, you know that the details. So with that said, this particular project, again, it has a companion rezoning and scheduled for ZHM.
Okay, sir, your 3 minutes are up.
Kind of consistent.
Your 3 minutes up, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. This is a public hearing. We have each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak, and we have some speakers here. The first speaker is Jonathan Cox.
Yes, hello.
Yes, sir. You have 3 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Yep, so I'd just like to, I live at 10703 Stallgate Drive, and the first point I'd like to make is that the commissioners have rezoned several properties right around the surrounding area, increasing the density tremendously with a Res 12 just south of just south of Andover's ownership of our retention ponds. Also, I wanted to mention that as part of the development, they were talking about putting another pond directly behind their complex and in between the homeowners of Stallgate Road, which I just can't imagine that additional setup being effective in any way. Possibly, I'd like to know that there are environmental studies not to increase potential sinkhole issues in the area doing that. So that's a big concern of mine. Second, I do have a big concern with the current project. We've seen the development schematics, and it does not fit the surrounding area's style of homes. It's going to stand out like a sore thumb with a flat roof. So that just makes no sense whatsoever from an architectural perspective of fitting into the general community from a design perspective. And also, I represent the board of Andover Homeowners Association tonight, and I'm telling you, our entire community is, at least in general population and majority, is against this. So you'll be going against the will of our community building this or allowing it to be rezoned. We're fine with keeping it its current zoning and being built out accordingly to fit the surrounding area. And we do have extreme safety concerns of in-school session, in and out issues. We've all had extreme challenges over the years with the population from Canella because the school didn't design the parking lot effectively. And so you'll find cars that run up and down both lanes on both sides of the road. Every time school's getting in, there's people there 2 hours in advance. When I was serving as the Homeowners Association president, I had to spend money from our association to put all the road signs that weren't clearly illustrated on that road to prevent additional accidents, but we still have them regardless because of the poor planning of the school and the way that it's handled during in and out sessions. And Nixon does have a high level of accidents. We just had 2 in the last week. Where we believe there was fatalities because the road intersections were shut down. So while it may not have the capacity, it's got a lot of hazards tied to it. We really appreciate you taking into consideration not rezoning this anything above Res 4 at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Robert Allen.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Well, first off, I hope Commissioner Hagan stays the vote. We all love to hear his vote. He represents our community. Also, I encourage all the commissioners to really, really listen to the community, the people that are going to talk. You'll hear many voices from community residents who live in this community, folks that are new to the community. Many have lived here for years. Many have lived here for their whole lives. Our community represents a diverse population from many backgrounds, ethnicities, experiences. I myself, I'm a military veteran serving in the Marine Corps Reserves, and I live in our neighborhood for over 20 years. The community is currently predominantly single-family homes. Again, that is single-family homes in the immediate area that surrounds that plot of land that is being requested to be rezoned. The planner failed to mention that any Res 9 in the area has not been fully developed yet, and they are not abutted to this large amount of single-family homes, and they are not across from a busy elementary school. And you cannot improve that Nixon Road with just adding another side lane that cars have to pull over when they're in a car line. So I want to paint a picture of a developer requesting this Res 9 approval, and he has up on his website this nice, fancy web design townhomes, but in reality, he can do anything he wants to after the fact once it gets approved. And what the rumors are is not good of what their ultimate plans are. So we, as a community, are against this totally, even with a pretty designed website that he's painting. Again, the owner of this land, he probably purchased it below market value and tries to fit as many homes into this plot of land as he possibly can. And he's going to leave the community holding the bag. In plain speak, that is basically what's going to happen. And I just want you to listen carefully to all the residents that are going to speak. This is not consistent and cannot possibly be integrated with the community in a harmonic fashion. It makes existing traffic problems worse. It offers the community no free spaces for parks and recreation that kids need to play in. And again, it's going to make the community, the traffic problems worse. The whole community is against this. You won't hear any positive responses, and that tells you something. And with that, I end my opposition speech.
Jeffrey Hines.
Hey, good evening. Can you hear me?
You have 3 minutes, sir. Yes, we can hear you.
Good evening. Okay. For the record, Jeffrey Hines, 10709 Stallgate Drive. For the past 20 years, my residence has abutted the western side of the subject, and I'd like to take my time tonight responding to the arguments the applicant has made. First, the applicant stated that there are Nixon Road improvements in the works. Nixon Road is not in the 5-year TIP, but there is a small project plan to pave the shoulder across from the subject property. So what you'll hear in rebuttal is that the applicant's solution to the Nixon Road problem is to use the shoulder to queue the northbound cars while they wait drop-off and pickup at the elementary school, but that's really a poor solution. Parking cars full of elementary school children and their parents on the shoulder of a 45-mile-an-hour 2-lane roadway isn't good planning practice. It's not safe for the cars, and it's not safe for the elementary kids. With Nixon Road not in the TIP, I'd suggest that if neither the applicant nor the county is going to improve Nixon, then the applicant really has no business requesting such high density on the subject parcel. And candidly, if the county isn't going to require the applicant to improve Nixon, the county really has no business approving such high density on the subject parcel. I expect the applicant will claim that similar parcels nearby have been approved for high-density multifamily infill. There's 3 problems with this. 1, infill by definition must be compatible with surrounding properties, which the proposed CPA is not. 2, there must be adequate infrastructure to support the infill, which there is not. Apart from the traffic problems on Nixon, the nearest public transportation connection is 2 miles away on Gun Highway. There's no sidewalk along most of Nixon, and there's really nowhere for the residents to walk anyhow. The nearest shopping center is 2 miles away. Finally, 3, the Res 9s the applicant cites as nearby are not even in the same neighborhood as the proposed CPA, and they're not similar to the proposed CPA. They're almost a mile away on Anderson Road, a 4-lane arterial, and they're nowhere near any SFRs. Very briefly, there's a flaw in the applicant's traffic letter. The applicant's traffic letter relied on ITE Generation Code 220, which is low-rise. However, the Res 9 the applicant seeks allows 3-story, so the applicant really should have used the ITE Trip Generation Code 221, which is substantially more intensive and would have materially changed the outcome of his traffic study. Finally, we're all frustrated that we have to come before you to contest the CPA as opposed to coming before you with letters of support. Unfortunately, in this instance, neither the developer nor his representative has done any community outreach whatsoever. The few times we have spoken with the developer, it's always been initiated by one of us in the neighborhood, and the interactions have been rather disappointing. In closing, I would suggest that asking for infill shouldn't give you a magic wand, allowing you to place high density just anywhere. Creating a Res 9 enclave within an established Res 4 subdivision is not good planning. Thank you.
Holly Delgado.
Yes, this is Holly Delgado. I'd like to state my opposition to the proposed plan. I personally have lived here for 20 years, and as you know, this is a Res 4 area. I believe there are some Res 6 surrounding it, but to consider adding 26 units to 3.42 acres, the infrastructure is not, it cannot take that. I don't know about, what they have to do to get such things. I have no idea if the sewer systems are good, and I'm sure they'd look into that. But I guess just personally for you, the commissioners, if you think about 3.42 acres, 26 units, that's a lot. I'm completely opposed to this. The noise, the light, the traffic, the odor associated with, so many units, 26 units on 3.42 acres. I'm opposed. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Is it Hashak Mehta?
Yes. Justin, can you hear me, please?
Yes, sir. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Ashok Mehta. I live on 10708 Stallgate Drive. I would not like to, I have the same concerns which my fellow residents have already aired, so I would like to not to repeat the same one, but I would like to request all the commissioners to take this matter very seriously. This is a very big concern from every angle. They should have also taken a more review with the school board and with the environment agency. Can you imagine there are lots of trees which are maybe 30 to 40 years old, and then the developer is saying he's going to cut them and he's going to start all over again? By the time the new trees will come, I'll already be dead. It has taken me 20 years to make my American dream come true with just a simple house of $175,000 to $200,000. And now I have to get out of this place just for the sake of the developer trying to build townhomes, and that also for sale, not for residents. Why can't he just blend with making little small houses, make a single zombie house, and why can't he just cooperate with the neighbors and make this an amicable, peaceful area to stay along with taking care of the children? I bet when the new developer comes, the only who are going to come to stay there will be those who have children and those who want to go to the same school. And there are already over 141 houses in our association, and so many children already block our main road just to go to school. And we already have a traffic block between Plantation and Nixon, between Lynn Road and Nixon, and now this will be additional. And this proposal is showing me that they are going to be a gated community. What? A gated community? How will the cars go in and out? And on average, there will be 26 flats, there will be about 60 to 100 cars in and out all the time. It's unbelievable. I cannot understand how this can be done. Another request is that if by any chance whatever development this does take place, please, we beg you to make sure that all the trees which are mature trees on the perimeter of Tug Hill, which is facing behind our house, and on Stallgate Drive perimeter and everywhere, please save as much tree as possible. I'm surprised, where is this Environment Agency? Well, they always talk and ask for funds for environment save. They try to save. Where are we saving? I don't think so we are saving anything on this earth. Please, Commissioner, if one of you is staying in our area, please come down, have a look at us, look at our conditions. This should be one. Unfortunately, this is the time when we cannot see face to face. When everybody wants, they want to come.
Okay, sir, your time is up. Sir, your time is up. Thank you.
Very much. Thank you all.
Eric Delgado.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You have 3 minutes.
All right. Thank you for your time, Board of Commissioner members. I would like to, first off, base my time on number one, opposition, and two concepts, which is trust and respect. And for the record, I live at 10707 Stallgate Drive. So we've lived here almost 20 years, and for all of those times, except for the last 9 months, though, we had neighbors, Jim and Shirley Travis, and we had a great relationship with them, such that if there was ever any issues or anything we needed, they needed, it was a talk across the fence. It was about a trust and respect to do things, but talk before we did them. I think about my neighbors as I'm standing out in my backyard now and looking at these beautiful trees, and that's today. And in a short period of time, if this gets approved, that will turn into buildings staring directly into not only my, but my neighbor's backyard, which that really isn't something that I ever envisioned when I moved here, nor I'm sure none of my neighbors did. I'd also like to reiterate when it comes to the trust and respect thing that, as Mr. Hines, my next door neighbor, said, that, you know, there was never any outreach from the developer or the engineer. We had to go out of our way to reach them. So that's my first point of a lack of trust and a lack of respect from them and a lack of trust for me. Looking at this project name even, where it's trying to pull in Lynn to it and Nixon, that's another misleading thing. Nixon is the main road, Lynn is south of us, but those are two different, completely separate neighborhoods. Thirdly, when we're talking about two-story being the norm, there's 250 houses in our neighborhood. I think there's maybe 12, 15 at most, so 95% are single family, and all of the ones with 2 stories do not look directly into anybody else's backyard because it was very well designed, and I'm sure for privacy purposes. I guess I'll close by just saying this, and I really am upset and angry that this could possibly happen, but I'd like to ask you, commissioners, or speak to you directly when I say this. For the developer, this is a business venture of many. For the engineer, it's just another project. After this, they'll move on. For this is life-changing for us. Every day, I ask the board members to see this through our eyes, or better yet, picture this happening to you. How would you feel? What would you do? Thank you for your time.
Mary Gonzalez Martinez.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. You have 3 minutes.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear us?
Okay, my name is Mary. I'm sorry?
Go ahead. Yes, ma'am. You have 3
My
minutes.
name is Mary. Okay, my name is Mary Gonzalez Martinez, and I live at 10701 Stallgate Drive in the Andover subdivision. First, I totally adamantly oppose this high-density potential development proposed on Nixon Road. This proposal by the developer of high-density townhomes would back up to single-family homes in Andover subdivision, including mine and others on Stallgate Drive and Tug Hill Drive, and front on Nixon Road directly across from Canella Elementary School, which has been said before, already suffers from total congestion due to the traffic at the entrance to Canella. Nixon Road is a substandard two-lane collector road and is inadequate in terms of the infrastructure to serve a 9-unit per acre high-density development. Please, I beseech you, please keep the current land use category Res 4. There are no non-residential uses in the immediate area surrounding the subject site, only residential single-family homes in area subdivisions. This entire proposed project is totally incompatible with this location and the area. Please, please vote no on this proposed Res 9 land use project. We do not want townhomes in our backyard, and we do not need more traffic and congestion on Nixon Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Toby.
Yeah, hi, this is Jim Toby, 5532 Tug Hill Drive. I am directly north of the proposed property and not in favor of this thing going on. The two-story buildings would look directly into my backyard. I'm probably closer than anyone else to the new buildings. There's not much I can say that other people haven't said more eloquently. Nixon Road definitely can't handle it. If you've ever been down there at pickup and drop-off time, you would know that it cannot handle any more traffic. I will yield my time.
Thank you, sir. Louis Roman.
Yes, thank you. This is Luis Roman. I live at 5412 Aragon Court. I have built my house here from the beginning when there was just a trailer on this lot. And I was the first resident to move in and have my house built here. And I've been here all the 24 years. And I have seen many, many fatalities on Nixon Road. As a matter of fact, just last week, right on Gun Highway, Nixon Road, there was a fatality. And I understand everybody, the applicants are talking about, oh, they're going to improve the roads and stuff like that. Let them come one morning when school is in and start on Gun Highway or and come and drive and try to get just to Lynn Road past Canella. I live here, and when I pull out in my driveway, it takes me 20 minutes just to get to Lynn Road normally. If they build all these homes, which they're talking about 30 units, oh, the applicant did say, oh, he's going to bring it down to 26. Ooh, for you. That's, 2 cars per unit, and that's just the minimum. Some people come and they have 4 cars or 6 cars. And another thing they have not spoken about, and because we are a community and everybody is family here in this community, they are not thinking about the children, the safety of the children that have to go and walk from our development across the street. When you have these people that have been waiting in line to get to Anderson Road, that get road rage and stuff, and they're not even thinking about the children. Now you add that many developments right there to the entrance to Nixon Road, and right in front of Canella Elementary School. It's going to be crazy. And the applicant said, "Oh, that Nixon Road is not a failed roadway." Let him drive here and see it. You know, I've witnessed it many times. It's not safe. It's not safe for just cars. And as the gentleman said previously, there are cars lined up at 7 o'clock in the morning to get into the school because they know how bad it is. And then when we come out, the only first entrance that the people that leave the school kids out that can get in is our entranceway here. And they come in to make a U-turn, and they pull up into our first cul-de-sac, because I live at the first cul-de-sac, and it's a line of cars that have dropped their kids off at school coming into our development to get back out because they can't make a U-turn, or they do it right in front of the entranceway. And that happens all the time. But I just wish that Board of County Commissioners, if you think about the safety of your children, think about that. If the person that said before me, if that was your children, that was your community, what would you want?
Sir, your time's up.
I hope
Thank you.
that you guys deny it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Deborah McNally.
Hi, this is Deborah McNally. I live at 10704 Stallgate Drive, and I oppose this change from residential 4 to residential 9 because this change is going to change our community forever. I've lived in my home for almost 20 years, and this neighborhood is just wonderful. If you look at the aerial view, you'll see that this is an area where there are single-family homes. And Andover is a nice, quiet community. It's very family-oriented and diverse. You see children playing outside, which is unusual in this day and time, and it's very safe. But this proposal is going to change our area, and it's going to put either townhomes or apartments or whatever ends up getting approved if you go up to the Res 9. So that's one of the things, one of the reasons that I oppose that. But also, when you get into townhomes and possibly even condos or apartments, I know I've seen the proposal, but who knows what will happen when it's done. You get into concerns with, now you're looking at rentals where people buy properties just to rent them out, not because they want to raise their family there. So now we're not having single families. It's something completely different, a lot more cars. We're concerned about the noise that this will bring into our neighborhood. And then a very huge concern is Nixon Road. I know you saw the pictures that the developer had put up for you to look at of Nixon Road, and it looks like it's out in the country. But that is not a true representation of what this road looks like when school is in session in the mornings and then in the afternoons when the kids are coming and going, or the way this road looks during rush hour. If you travel west on Linebaugh or travel northwest on Gun Highway, this is the first road that cuts through to connect those two roads together, all the way down from, say, like the intersection where all that's together. So it's a long way, and people cut through all the time. They drive really fast, so we're very concerned about adding even more cars dumping into this road, and it's already a mess. So, and as I understand it, the developer is not being required to invest in widening Nixon Road. So basically, we're just adding more cars, but not adding more safety. So just in general, in summary, I know the Planning Commission said it was consistent with their plans for the area, but it is not consistent for me as a homeowner, a property taxpayer, and a voter. This is not consistent with what I want to see happening in my community and in my neighborhood. Neither is it for what my neighbors want to see. So that is why I'm asking each and every one of you commissioners to please vote no for this change. I yield my time.
Terry Hines.
Yes. Hi, my name is Terry Hines, and I live in the property directly behind the proposed development. I've lived in this home for almost 20 years. The proposed proposed project would be in my backyard. And while the developer says that the 80-foot setback will prevent the view into our home, this simply is not true. We've actually modeled this with engineering software. And the residents of these proposed buildings would have a direct view well into the back windows of our homes, including our family homes and master bedrooms. It's heartbreaking to me, after living there 20 years, to know that my family and the families on our street will no longer have the privacy we need in order to feel safe in our homes. I also want to stress, like others, that the Nixon Road is dangerous. The intersections at both ends are among the most dangerous in the country, in the county, I'm sorry. On school mornings, there's multiple crossing guards and also a police officer to direct the traffic on Nixon. So with the entrance of the townhomes directly across from the elementary school, it's going to be even more dangerous. And if the developer plans to gate the community, the situation will be even worse because the cars will queue on Nixon Road. I know we're hearing, some of the people we're hearing from, like myself, about the proposed property. However, I can tell you that that residents throughout the neighborhood are adamantly opposed to this. Myself and a few of my neighbors walked around the neighborhood, knocking on doors, all parts of the neighborhood, with a petition this week, asking people to sign it to oppose it. And almost every single person that we talked to was adamantly, all but one, was adamantly opposed to it. And they were very happy to sign the petition. And we're thankful that we are doing this because people are angry and upset about this throughout the community. So this is life-changing for us. So I am begging you, please deny this proposal. Thank you for your time.
Ginger Cox.
Hi, this is Ginger Cox. I live at 10703 Stallgate Drive, and my property is right behind the fence that will be on the proposed project. I object and hope that you will keep the zoning as a Res 4 that we already have. The Res 9 does not fit the area on Nixon Road or the area of our community here in Andover. The Res 9 will violate our privacy, as Ms. Hines just shared on the previous call. I've lived here myself for almost 2 decades, and I enjoy the neighborhood. We've raised our kids here. This is our home, and this will change everything about how we live. I know for a fact Nixon is not safe. I have been the unfortunate recipient of somebody running their car into my car as I was driving my children home on Nixon, and they pulled out of the school. Directly across from where the entrance of this Res 9 proposal was being made is where the accident took place. The other concern we have is that the builder, this project planner, have not reached out to Andover in any way to try and communicate with us and get our support. We are a community. We do embrace people coming into our community. We have annexed homes into our community in our association in the past, and we have received nothing from them. My husband had to find out who the builder was and contact them himself. And he still did not want to forego having this hearing right now. He wanted to press forward with his vision, which he has not shared with us or helped embrace what we have here. I hope that you will vote no on this proposed rezoning. Thank you.
Our last speaker is Jose De Jesus.
Yes, I am signed up to speak, but not on this item.
Okay, so which item do you want to speak on? Okay.
20-05, which is item A1.
Okay, well, I'll get back to you. Remind staff for me to get back to you on A1, okay? Thank you. I see, you're right. That's okay. All right, that closes the public hearing. Applicant, you have 3 minutes in rebuttal.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Obviously, you guys have got a tough situation here. You got a property that has policies, objectives that are consistent with your future land use plan. Everything on this property says transitional, infill, and it fits the description of what we're trying to accomplish. These things that are being talked about today typically should be addressed in the zoning phase. These are, building, shape, height, traffic, design. Those are rezoning items that really, that's where they should be addressed. So I ask you to focus on this request from the land use standpoint. There is one thing I do want to mention is they talk about us not reaching out. That's completely incorrect. I personally spoke with Mr. Cox, the president of the association. In my conversations with him, he was more concerned about telling me what he wanted us to do rather than listening to what we were proposing. I also talked to Mr. James Hind twice. He had a planner involved. We had phone conversations. We went over design aspects. We made changes at his request and submitted those to the county, specifically trying to achieve a support. And then I actually found out that there was a letter of objection that he sent following that. So when you talk about integrity, we did make contact with the association, the key people that are the ones that have the most influence, and they really just don't want what we're trying to propose. So unfortunately, that's the situation. One thing I want to touch on is children's safety. One of the things I mentioned is we are doing a safety pedestrian study to look at crosswalks specifically for that purpose. So that is not something that was overlooked. So further and foremost, they want this property to remain as it is. It's ASC1 is the zoning, land use is R4. For this to move forward, this land use allows us to move to the next step. And then in that rezoning, you as the Board of County Commissioners have the opportunity to either accept that or have us work through a different alternative. But it really, that's where those nuts and bolts get worked out. Have any questions? I am available.
Okay, thank you, sir. Discussion, board members. Any discussion, board members? What's your pleasure? What's your pleasure? Anything at all? Commissioner Smith, you're recognized.
I find the community's concerns compelling. I think that some of them have been addressed by the applicant, but some have not. I'm concerned about the position across the street from the school, and I'm concerned about neighborhood compatibility. So this is a adoption hearing, I'd move denial.
There's a motion by Commissioner Smith for denial. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner White. Is there any further discussion? I see no further discussion. There's a motion by Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner White for denial. Please call the roll.
Miller,
Yes.
Hagan, Kemp,
Yes.
Merman,
Yes.
Overman,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
Okay. With that, we have to have a motion to approve an ordinance for adoption of small-scale plan amendments, and those amendments will be CPA 20-03 and CPA 20-06, and we need 5 votes to pass. What's your pleasure?
So moved. Commissioner
Motion by
Merman.
Commissioner Merman. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Overman. Any discussion? See no discussion. Please call the roll.
Miller,
Yes.
Hagan, Kemp,
Yes.
Merman,
Yes.
Overman,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Smith, I didn't hear your vote.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
Okay. Who is this Parish Joseph? Thank you.
That was me. I'm done. No problem.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tony Garcia, Planning Commission staff. Once again, this takes us to the top of our agenda, item A1, which is CPA 20-05. Mr. Will Augustine is the presenter.
Good evening, Commissioners. Will Augustine, Planning Commission staff. The next agenda item before you is Hillsborough County's Comprehensive Plan 20-05.
I'm sorry, you're coming out really muffled. Can you please repeat yourself?
Will do. Good evening, Commissioners. Will Augustine, Planning Commission staff. The next agenda item before you is Hillsborough County's Comprehensive Plan 20-05. Next slide, please.
Mr. August, could you please move the paper from in front of your microphone?
There is no paper in front of my microphone.
Okay.
I'll increase the volume.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Comprehensive Plan Amendment 20-05 is located in South Hillsborough County along Highway 41, just south of Cracker Avenue and north of Big Bend Road. Next slide, please.
South of what avenue?
It is south of Cracker Avenue and north of Big Bend Road.
Okay.
The subject site of Comprehensive Plan Amendment 20-05 is a privately initiated map amendment in South Hillsborough County, which is approximately 18.65 acres in size. The aerial shows that the surrounding area is predominantly commercial and manufacturing businesses. The land use of heavy industrial and light industrial predominate the area. The subject property is south of the Cracker Avenue Highway 41 intersection. The Tampa Port Authority's Port Red Wing and TECO's Big Bend Station is to the west. The Golden Aster Scrub Preserve is to the east. This subject site is in the urban service area. Next slide, please. The subject site has an adopted suburban mixed-use land use classification. The area south of the subject site is heavy industrial, light industrial, and community mixed-use 12. North of the subject site is mostly residential 4, suburban mixed-use 6, and heavy industrial. Heavy industrial, light industrial, suburban mixed-use 6 are the predominant land uses of the surrounding properties. Next slide, please. The applicant is requesting a heavy industrial land use classification change. Next slide, please. The currently adopted land use classification of suburban mixed use 6 allows a maximum of 111 dwelling units on the 18.65 acre site. Suburban scale neighborhood commercial, office, or multi-purpose projects are limited to 175,000 square feet or a floor area ratio of 0.25. With the land use change to heavy industrial, the subject site would have a potential build out of up to over 609,000 square feet or a floor area ratio of 0.75. Next slide, please. This photograph is a view looking east, showing the northern boundary of the subject property. Next slide, please. This photograph is a view looking south along Highway 41. To the left is the subject property. Next slide, please. This photograph is a view looking east, showing the subject property. Next slide, please. This photograph is a view from Highway 41, looking northeast at the subject property. Next slide, please. This photograph is a view looking east towards the southern boundary of the subject property. Next slide, please. This photograph is a view looking north along Highway 41, showing the subject property to the right. Next slide, please. And finally, this photograph is a view looking west along Highway 41, showing the entrance road to the port facility across from the subject property. Next slide, please. After distribution for local agency review, no objections were received. However, the county's Environmental Protection Commission noted wetlands to the rear of the property. Next slide, please. After distribution to the surrounding property owners for review, the agency received one public comment. Next slide, please. Planning Commission staff have determined that the request for a land use change to heavy industrial is consistent with the objectives and policies in the future land use, transportation, and coastal management elements. Next slide, please. Finally, the Planning Commission found Hillsborough County's Comprehensive Plan Amendment 2005 consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the future of Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County. Next slide, please. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, sir. This is the applicant here?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Adam Carnegie from Stantec, representing Port Tampa Bay. Can you hear me well?
Yes, sir. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Again, it's Adam Carnegie, Stantec, 777 South Harbor Island Boulevard, representing Port Tampa Bay for this plan amendment application. The future land use map designation is, the proposed future land use designation is heavy industrial. The site, I'm showing you Google Earth here, the site, which is circumscribed here by my cursor, is right across the street from Port Red Wing. So it's a very much.
Sir, are you trying to show us something?
Yeah, I thought I was
see
sharing my screen.
No, not yet.
Not yet, huh?
No, stop the clock. Let him see if he can get his screen up.
I was having some problems showing Google Earth before. Is this?
It's up now, sir.
Okay, that's it. Continue, please.
Thank you, sir. So the 18.65 acre site, which is subject to this request, is being circumscribed here on the east side of 41. You see that's right across from Port Red Wing, just to give you some context. The area, now you're looking at the future land use map designation.
Not yet.
I hope in due course. Let me unshare and share again. Anyway, while I'm trying to do this.
Sir, hold on a second. Hold on just a minute. Mr. Brewer?
Sir, this is James. Go ahead and stop sharing the orange tab at the top center.
Yep.
And then go ahead and individually select the document that you want to share and reopen it.
Got it. I will try to do that. That should work.
Okay, proceed, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good. Thank you very much. Thanks, James. What we see here outlined in yellow, commissioners, the red area, the red shaded area is the plan amendment area. The yellow shaded area is a PD purchased by the port back in 2018. It's about 115 acres, which surrounds the site, this 18.65 acre sites for which the plan amendment request has been filed. The real reason for the port adding this 8.65 acres is to substantially increase the way in which access works for this site, which they plan to develop for industrial uses, port-related and other industrial uses. We're kind of just generally showing you here that this intersection, which is a full median opening on US 41 at the Diana-Toledo-Alameda Road intersection, by bringing in the plan amendment site and now including it within the PD, for which an application has already been filed, that will allow for us to do a four-way controlled intersection here, which would be signalized at some point as needed, which would reduce traffic on the more local street, which is Cracker Avenue. I might point out that the port has already done improvements to Cracker Avenue, so there'd be a second access at this point at the northern point of the site. By the way, your plan does require, I think it's policy 26.7, that after amending this to future industrial, for this industrial development in total, we would have to do a PD to allow for the development of this. The wetland that the EPC mentioned is an other surface water, and that was excavated. It's a man-made excavation sometime after 1957, before 1965. And I have areas that I can go back to show you that. But those will be dealt with at the zoning level. We appreciate the Planning Commission's unanimous recommendation for approval, and that we urge the Commission to transmit this so we can move on to the next phase of the project development. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. We have one speaker, Mr. Jose De Jesus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Jose De Jesus. I am an engineer with Port Tampa Bay, 1101 Channelside Drive, and I am here to assist in answering any questions that the Commission may have on this application. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Mr. Carnegie, you waive your time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Board members, what's your pleasure?
Commissioner White moves the item.
Approval, Commissioner Merman.
Motion by Commissioner White, second by Commissioner Merman to approve item CPA 20-05. Seeing no discussion, please call the roll.
I have a question. Just a quick question.
Okay. All right, Commissioner, when you recognize.
The property right now is obviously the connected to other high industrial uses. What is the property to the north of the site?
The property, let me share that screen so we can be talking about the same.
On the same side of the street, but to the north. Looks like mixed use, but I don't know what it is.
There's a storage.
Right.
There's a storage unit there, a big storage unit there.
Yeah, and it is a landscape supply, banner supply. It's essentially a multi-tenant, heavy commercial development, Commissioner.
Okay, so it is actually commercial rather than residential at that place.
Oh, yes.
Yes, ma'am. Heavy commercial.
Residential.
I thought so, but I couldn't really tell from the illustrations. Okay, and then ultimately, although it's not related to this, but what is the plan for this property?
Good question. The PD that was approved, Commissioner Overman, in 2007 allows for 1.7 million square feet of industrial uses and other appurtenant uses. By adding this 18.65 acres, as I mentioned, the critical benefit is to improve access. We're actually not going to be asking for an increase in the PD zoning that's already been filed and is of record with the county. We're using that same 1.75 million and simply spreading that over a larger area, somewhat de-intensifying the site. So it will be, to answer your question directly, it still would be industrial and related uses, including some integrated or freestanding commercial on the US 41 side of the site, but that's how we intend to use the site. The port intends to use the site. And it would be by tenants who approach the port for port-related and other industrial uses. No residential uses are permitted.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I was just curious because it's in a low coastal area, so I was wanting to see what the overall plan was. But thank you very much for your answers. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
We have a motion by Commissioner White, second by Commissioner Merman. Seeing no further discussion, please call the roll on CPA 20-05.
Miller,
Yes.
Hagan, Kemp,
Yes.
Merman,
Yes.
Overman,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay. Mr. Garcia. You're welcome.
Your final item for the night, CPA 1908, being presented by Krista Kelly.
Ms. Kelly.
Thank you. Krista Kelly, Planning Commission staff. I'm presenting the final plan amendment, CPA 1908. Next slide, please. This location map shows the site. It's in the southeastern portion of the county, within the urban service area, also within the South Shore Area Systems Plan boundary. The site is located on the east side of Lithia Pinecrest Road. Browning Road is to the west of the site and south of the site. Next slide, please. This is an aerial of the site outlined in pink. The property is the most southern portion of the Fishhawk Trails subdivision, as you can see, fully built out or almost built out. The lot sizes in this area range from 1/2 acre to 1 acre. The site is adjacent to the urban service boundary. It's 15.94 acres in size and currently is undeveloped. Next slide, please. The future land use map, as it is adopted today, shows the site designated public, quasi-public. This designation is a remnant of the initial platting of the subdivision, at what point they thought an elementary school may be constructed. As you can see, outside the urban service area, the property is agricultural in nature. Residential 1 does abut the site. Next slide, please. The applicant's requesting a change to residential 2. You might wonder why they're not sharing the same land use designation as Fishhawk Trails, which is RP2 or Residential Plan 2. The plan has a policy not to continue or change to that designation. Residential 2 allows the same density, however. Next slide, please. The impact of this change, currently there is no residential uses permitted. The the intensities are based on the surrounding land use patterns. If the site were to be amended to residential 2, it would allow up to 31 dwelling units. The site does not meet locational criteria, therefore non-residential uses would require a waiver. Next slide, please. Staff reviewed it for consistency and found it consistent with the growth management strategy, which directs development into the urban service area, as it encourages growth concurrent with the area's urban services and promotes development that's compatible and complementary in scale and character with the surrounding area. Next slide, please. In addition, this proposed amendment would allow for infill development and a gradual transition between suburban and urban scale development to the rural scale development outside the urban service area. Next slide, please. Based on these findings, the Planning Commission recommends that the proposed plan amendment CPA 1908 be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Applicant, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Jake Kramer with Stearns Weaver, 401 East Jackson Street. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see that, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Again, Jake Kramer. I have our full team here tonight. They're going to be presenting following me using these same slides. We have Isabel Albert with urban planning, Mike Yates for transportation, and then the applicant representative, Mr. Reed Fishbaugh.
You know you only have 3 minutes now.
Yes, sir. They're signed up as speakers as well. They're also going to be speaking after me.
Are they part of the applicant team?
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Lugren, are you there?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Is it 3 minutes per applicant team member or 3 minutes overall?
We've been taking the consistent position that the applicant is allowed 3 minutes per applicant team member.
So it's 3 minutes per applicant team member?
Yes, sir. That's
Okay.
been how we've been handling it previously.
Just want to make sure. Okay, proceed, sir.
Mr. Chairman, just a point of order before we proceed. We were told before this hearing that we would have the ability to have each person who signed up who wanted to speak, that they would get 3 minutes.
Yes, that's what she just said. Each one of your team members will get 3 minutes.
Oh, okay. I apologize. Thank you. I misunderstood. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, and board members, this application came before you back in January. We didn't have a full board then to make a decision on this. So some of this may be familiar to you. We're requesting to return this property to residential use. The Fishhawk DRI, which this property is within, and the zoning for Fishhawk both allow residential use on this parcel, and they always have. As Isabel will explain, this parcel was designated public, quasi-public, really merely because the school district happened to own it at a certain point in time. In this case, if there were ever a justification for placing the property in its current land use, those circumstances, I would submit, don't exist anymore, and the property needs a new designation. The evidence in this case is that the current land use is not appropriate. The current future land use limits the land use for uses that aren't viable anymore. And we know that because the school board has told us that, and the school board actually surplused the property. On top of all that, as Michael will explain,
I'm sorry, I think Jake kind of froze right now. This is Isabel Albert speaking. So I'm going to...
The developer of Fishhawk actually already mitigated for the traffic impacts of this project. I apologize. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. You came back, yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm just finishing up. The developer of Fishhawk already mitigated for the traffic impacts of this project, and we will be paying fees per the mobility fee ordinance. This amendment will also actually decrease the potential trips on the roadway, as well as eliminate direct access onto Lithia Pinecrest. So, commissioners, this site is this project is exactly what this board has been telling the development community that you want to see. It's infill development on an underutilized property. It's within the urban service boundary. It's sensitive to and compatible with its context. And it was planned with extensive community involvement over a 2-year period. So with that, we would ask for your approval today and just remind you that this is a transmittal hearing. So if you have comments, items that you would like us to work with you on between now and the adoption hearing, we're happy to do that. So I'll turn it over to Isabel. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. So the site is located within the Fishhawk DRI and planned development. It's also located within the urban service area, and it was always planned to have an elementary school. However, the final location was not determined until where it is today. The DRI and the planned development always approved and always recognized that if the school board found the site inadequate, that it could be converted to residential. Next, please. And that's exactly what happened with the school board. This is a memo describing exactly why they had to surplus the property, but most importantly, the reason was for access safety. They had some concern with the access, but also they recognized that the area where it is, most of the kids were going to be transported to school in their individual cars instead of being bussed in. And there are raised some concerns about the traffic circulation on site. And then also, they also need a graded need for revenues. Next, please. So originally, when the school board purchased the property, they had RP2, just like the rest of them, rest of the Fishhawk development. But in 2016, 2012, the Planning Commission did an overall land use map amendment and identified sites that were owned, a lot of them that were actually owned by the school board, and they converted their land use to public quasi-public. However, in this instance, it did not help the situation because that land use does not allow residential, which was contradicting to what the DRI and the plan development were allowing. Next, please. So the school board did sell the property and the applicant repurchased the property. He has a property to the east and looked at this opportunity as a great infill, looked at the site and understood some of the issues with access and what to go there. So he purchased the property and he wanted to combine it with his property. But in order to do that, and this is why we're here tonight, is they need a residential 2 future land use category. And in combining with that will be an amendment to the zoning. Next, please. And more closely, this would be the zoning. And the zoning, and this is in discussion with, for 2 years discussion with the neighbors. And one other concern was the Fishhawk trails. They wanted to make sure that was protected. So therefore, we're proposing a buffer. We're also proposing the 50-foot buffer, which mirrors the development to the east and to the west. And most importantly, recently, we've added this active open space. And this space is going to be a large space used for the residents of this big community. And most importantly, again, no access onto Lithia Pinecrest. Next, please. These are comprehensive plan consistencies that we meet. Most importantly is to be compatible, mirrors what's around you, and it's also with a lot of neighborhood input. Next, please. And again, what do you do with a site with this? The most viable site is to have this residential 2 mirrors and very compatible with all the surrounding development around you. It's the one that with the least impacted onto the road system. And this is our proposal. Next is Michael. Thank you.
Michael Yates, are you there?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. I'm going to go through the traffic slide. This is part
Please state your name for the record.
Yes, Michael Yates with Palm Traffic. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Okay. Again, Michael Yates with Palm Traffic. This parcel is part of the Fishhawk Ranch DRI, which has specific approval and mitigated for 4,659 dwelling units and 386,569 square feet of retail. The DRI has built as of January 28, 2020, only 3,389 dwelling units and 249,102 square feet of retail. That leaves 970 dwelling units and 137,467 square feet of retail that has been unbuilt. The DRI was approved and mitigated for 4,343 external PM peak hour trips. Based on the latest DRI annual monitoring report, that documented the traffic at 3,652 external PM peak hour trips, which is 691 trips less than mitigated. The DRI included three 900 student elementary schools, only 2 of which have been built. This was the subject of the third site. The DRI approved trips does not include elementary schools in the PM peak hour, since the 6th edition ITE did not assign PM peak hour trips to that. However, the new ITE 10th edition now assigns 153 PM peak hour trip-ins and 603 AM peak hour trip-ins for an elementary school of 900 students. The next slide, please. Fishhawk DRI entered into an officially built out agreement, EBOA, in 2016. Florida Statute 3806 states that a project may be determined to be essentially built out through an agreement. Such agreement can allow certain development to continue without further DRI reviews subject to local government comprehensive plan and land development regulations. The EBOA allowed for an additional 242 PM peak hour trip-ins to be developed on 5 parcels. Based on evaluation of these parcels, only an equivalent of 154 PM peak hour trip ins have been built to date. An additional equivalent 47 PM peak hour trip ins could be constructed on the remaining unbuilt parcels for a total of 201 PM peak hour trip ins. The proposed 23 single-family dwelling units on the elementary school parcel will generate approximately 25 PM peak hour trip ins. Therefore, the parcels in the EBOA completely built out and the proposed 23 single-family dwelling units would generate only 226 PM peak hour
Okay,
trip
sir.
ins.
So your 3 minutes are up. Your 3 minutes are up, sir. Thank you. Who's next?
Good evening, Commissioners. This is Reed Fishbach. I feel as though we're here to help create solutions. This property was put up for public sale by the Hillsborough County School Board, and it was a good transaction for them to help raise capital for the schools at the time when they're in desperate need for funds. I felt that incorporating this property into the adjoining property would be a better option for the community than a standalone development. The ability to provide alternate access to this property enhances the safety of our community. I live in this area. I pass this site daily. This is the best option for the site. This is the last piece of residential land within the Fishhawk DRI. It's a lot easier to start than it is to finish. We are the little guys. We are 23 single-family homes following 3,400 homes that have already been built. We want to create a good development that fits the character for the community. After recent discussions with commissioners and requests on, to add uses to the site, we have added the 2.5-acre active open space that future residents will be able to enjoy. This will give residents a recreational opportunity without needing to leave the community. Over the past several years, we've had a great relationship with Fishhawk Trails, and I really respect the communication and dialogue we've had over the years. If you have any feedback on this, we're willing to discuss with you. This is just the first step. We still have multiple hearings and a long way to go. I ask you to approve this amendment and allow us to continue the conversation. Thank you.
Is that it for the applicants?
This is Jake Kramer. Yes, Mr. Chair, that's all.
Okay. All right. We had no one sign up for public hearing. Am I right, staff?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you waive your time for rebuttal?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Overman, you're recognized.
Sorry, I forgot to take it down from before. My apologies.
Okay. Commissioner Smith, you're recognized.
I was going to move approval.
Motion by Commissioner Merman to move approval. Is that second?
Commissioner White seconds.
There's a motion by Commissioner Merman, a second by Commissioner White. Commissioner Smith, you recognize.
Thank you. And I am I'm really pleased with the lengths that this applicant has gone through to address our concerns. And I have to say that they have changed my mind on this. I was concerned about the kind of the EBOA, the essentially built out agreement, and the idea that every condition as Fishhawk Trails was rezoned, well, not every condition, but at every rezoning, the condition that said the school site could be converted to residential said only provided that the total number of dwelling units approved within the project is not increased. And it as all my investigation showed that Fishhawk had taken all the density off of that, but the developer has, the applicant has gone to great lengths to dig into the weeds of that and show that that condition is satisfied, that the residential density provided in the original agreement did leave room for this. I agree that it probably is the best future land use for this, and appreciate the addition of the park. I also feel like this developer did a lot of work with the community along the way, and with Fishhawk Trails in adding the buffers and working with them to get their approval after their initial opposition. So I will support the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Merman, second by Commissioner White. Seeing no further discussion, please call the roll.
Miller,
Yes.
Hagan, Kemp,
Yes.
Merman,
Yes.
Overman,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
Okay, we need a motion and a vote on the resolution for transmittal of the above amendments, which we were just approved. That's CPA 2005 and CPA 1908. Is there a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion by Commissioner Merman, second by Commissioner White. Seeing no further discussion, please call the roll.
Miller,
Yes.
Hagan, Kemp.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Kemp, I couldn't hear you.
Yes.
Thank you. Merman,
Yes.
Overman,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
Ms. Garcia, is there anything else coming before us tonight?
These two amendments will come back to this body in late August for your information. There is nothing else this evening, and I would like to just very briefly extend my thanks to Terry McElroy and to James Brewer as well for their fantastic efforts in making this meeting work as well as it did. Thank you all very much.
Yeah, they do great work. They do great work. Having no other business come before us tonight, we adjourn.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.